Welcome back to the channel. A lot to unpack this week, a lot to talk about, especially around the changes that are now coming through from the federal government, new changes that allow individuals that own a home to refinance their property and add in additional units like a rental basement, a laneway, or garden suite. What are some of these rules? What are some of the problems, some of the complications that we could see happening with these changes? And ultimately, if we look at some other municipalities that already have municipal programs, right? They have pilot projects allowing individuals to finish their basement. What are some of the problems that we could foresee across Ontario and potentially across Canada with this program? And more importantly, especially focusing in on the GTA here, in a recent study conducted for the GTA benchmarking study, ultimately, what are some of the headwinds that we have facing Canadians, especially when it comes to housing affordability, trends, and what's happening with developers? We actually have data. So I want to take an opportunity, connect some of these dots, basically look at what is happening right now and try to figure out, is the government really trying to make housing more affordable? Or are they telling you, hey, you're going to have to renovate your house in order to afford it? Or is it going to be a generational home? Is this literally the proof in the pudding right now? Because all these plans, all these programs literally that are coming out right now point to a sustained and bolstered housing market. They point to the fact that the government maybe is trying to win votes at the next election, whether that be next year or sooner. What is really happening? And do they expect taxpayers to back up these programs? I mean, that is literally the reality. Let's take a look at this particular program. So when you think about it, look, I can now refinance my home up to 30 years. I can go up to a loan to value of 90% of $2 million. And given you'll need to have an income probably north of 350,000 to qualify for that. But what does it tell you? Is it going to cost that kind of money to basically retrofit your basement or potentially add that laneway or garden suite? Of course. I mean, adding a new dwelling on your property cost money. It can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you have to go through the permitting, architectural, engineering, all the other components. Remember, all these things right now that we have or talking about when it comes to building any of those units has to fit the municipal's bylaws, the zoning, all that needs to be taken care of. But who's enforcing it, right? In the sense of now that you've applied for that loan come January 15, when this program comes into play, well, how is the bank going to, deliver on the product? Are they going to require you to have an appraisal done, obviously, prior to the renovation, then an appraisal done after the renovation is complete? Is it going to be inspected? Is it going to be allowed that you can do the work yourself, or do you have to hire a contractor? Is there going to be a specific timeline? Because we have a program very similar to this, obviously not identical, but it is called the Purchase Plus Improvement, where if you're buying a home that is insured, you are eligible to do some work to the home, but there are requirements. Are those requirements going to be passed through on this particular program? Once again, the ink is wet. We don't really know. But my qualms, I should say, with this program is the fact that it is backed by the government. We're now basically incentivizing individuals to go into the contracting industry and sort of retrofit their basement and build laneway homes. And obviously, I understand the rationale behind it. Obviously, this is basically piggybacking off of the Liberal government's agenda to create more affordable and sustainable housing for generations to come. I understand it was tabled back in 2024 in the budget, but it caught everyone off guard. I mean, like literally off guard. None of these changes are, something that we were prepared for. And I'm sure the banks aren't prepared for it either. Or maybe they are. Literally, as I said, this is an opportunity for them to make more money. Not going to lie, this is obviously good for mortgage professionals and lenders because we're going to be now potentially refinancing to help Canadians retrofit their basement for multiple reasons. Whether you want to move your family into your basement, right? Especially if you're, struggling, maybe your parents are aging and they need to move. They're going to sell their home, move in with you, or maybe vice versa. Children that won't be able to purchase a home are going to be able to move in to their parents' home, retrofit the basement, create a laneway or additional, garden suite. There's so many different ways that this could play out, right? And as I said, we'll leave that conversation alone for a moment. Get your feedback in the comment section below. But if you think about what's happening in Brampton right now. And I don't know if you're aware or not aware of it, but
This is the Wild West in Brampton, and there's absolutely no rules and no consequences. And even when there are consequences, it's the cost of doing business.
The business of building basement apartments in Brampton, modifying bungalows to add new rental units fast.
Work gets done, but it gets done shoddily, quickly, and without the proper approvals.
Residents raising more alarms a month after we reported on this project on Caledon Crescent. The owner had a building permit, but neighbors pointed out safety issues, including an absence of construction fencing and open holes. Now that outdoor work,
They have been shut down.
not by the city, but the province's Technical Standards Authority, after damage to the gas line on the property.
they've launched a pilot program of which began back in January of 2024. And with this program, ultimately, they're seeing a lot of complications when it comes to, the permits, the fines that they're issuing, and obviously slum landlords. This is what they're saying in the media. And it doesn't matter, as I said, most people are trying their best to make ends meet. They're renting their basement out. A lot of different programs, a lot of rental companies advertising, financing options for these particular basements. But my question is the work, the quality of the work that is being done when you're putting people, human beings in these basements. What type of environments, what type of quality are they going to do? Remember, because when you're doing the work on your own, you're generally forking out your own dime. And this is obviously, maybe you're doing it for your own reasons. Maybe you're going to cut corners, but is this particular scenario now going to allow individuals to cut corners and create safe spaces for families to live in? I mean, especially if you're renting it out. If you're bringing in your family, I would hope to think that you're going to want to make sure that, hey, all that is pretty safe, and it meets code. It meets, regress windows for in case of a fire. It has to have a separate entrance, right? But it's saying, look, as long as you build a rental unit, we'll refinance your own with the 90% of $2 million, but it can't be a short-term rental. You can take a 30-year amortization and you have to own the home. You can have a family member rent it out. You can have a family member in it. It's literally the enforcement part. I mean, looking at all these things is very, very important to understand. We're definitely facing a housing shortage. The government looks like it's asking taxpayers and homeowners to help bring more inventory to the market. They're not directly giving you the money, but they're helping you take on the debt to do so, right? And if we start adding into the equation what's happening in the GTA with this study we talked about earlier at the beginning, I mean, we're starting to see all the symptoms play out, right? We've talked about on the channel before. If you've subscribed to the channel, you've been following us for some time now. We've talked about obviously the major problems with building, especially in the GTA. Now we have the data to support it. I mean, they're talking about housing affordability, servicing mortgages in the GTA. 60% of incomes are devoted to covering the mortgage cost. Obviously, with rents increasing as well, the higher costs are creating problems for Canadians. And when you think about, hey, 60%, which I would argue is probably understated, especially in the GTA and hotter markets, probably closer to 80, 90%, qualifying for a mortgage is already challenging enough because you have to fit specific guidelines, especially for those insured mortgages, right? You can't exceed 39% GDS or 44% TDS. So basically, think about TDS as total debt servicing. That's your mortgage, interest, principal, heating, and property taxes in conjunction with any other debts that you may have, like car loans, lines of credits, or any consumer debt. If you're at 60%, there's no chance that you would qualify for an insured mortgage. We have the inadequate home construction. I mean, the government has failed to deliver on these rental houses. They just missed the ball. They haven't been building and keeping pace with the requirements here in Canada since 1972. I mean, for the last 50 plus years, they have not been building enough homes just for the existing Canadians that are here, not let alone the new arrivals that are coming, which we need to basically bring into these urban centers. This is where they're coming. A lot of them are coming into Ontario and Vancouver. There's just not enough, right? We just don't have enough homes. And yes, you might argue, say, hey, there's a whole ton of condos that are about to come on the market. Those were built for investors. Those were gobbled up for investors. That was a one-trick pony for investors type of thing, right? They're just not building the single-family homes. If you look at this particular segment, we're just not building those homes. And that's why a lot of young Canadians are chasing after the single-family homes. Now, speaking of that, there's the decline in development applications. I mean, look, the economic conditions aren't the best here in Canada. Unemployment, we have so many different headwinds here in Canada that obviously applications have dropped sharply since 2021, which is obviously the peak of when we saw the most amount of homes being built. And due to policy change and economic conditions, that's threatening the future of future home building. Remember, every home that's not built today that takes time to come to the market is one less home in the future. And to basically hammer that point home, the study shows, hey, slow development timelines in municipalities are generally about 20.3 months. That's under 2 years from application to shovel in the ground. That's not even to do with completion. Condos could take years. Subdivisions could take a year and a half from basically application to permit, then permit to actually building. Remember, once they get a permit, there's a timeline. There's a vacant land. They have to pay taxes. These builders are incurring costs. Those costs are being passed on to the end user, the person buying that home. And ultimately, that's causing delays, and those delays are adding into around $43,000 to $90,000 per unit municipally, according to the study. In addition to all that, you're looking at raising municipal fees. That the fact that we're not even talking about provincial or federal taxes and all the fees and levies that come in municipally since 2022, $42,000 of increase for a low-rise home. That's a town, a semi, a single family detached home, for example, and $32,000 for high-rise condos. These particular units have gotten more expensive. And the study basically concludes that, look, if we don't address these concerns, build more homes, we're going to face a significant shortage, like we know, over the next little while, obviously for the foreseeable future, until we can finally play a game of catch up, if that's even possible. And then obviously the jobs. I mean, this is talking about job creation. Housing in Canada is a major source of employment and labor, right? We need workers. We don't have the skilled trades. They're not doing it right now. That's going to create unemployment. I mean, a lot of big problems. Once again, all these conversation points are in the description box below so that you can read through them, rifle through them, and make your own conclusions. I'm looking at this from the perspective saying, look, the government is telling us we need people to buy homes. It's a big part of the economy, but not everybody can afford it, unfortunately. And we're allowing mechanisms now. We're going to back mechanisms to allow people to stay in their home generationally, pass that home on potentially, but tax you on it. And then, allow individuals to basically get into the contracting industry and, get in home, lever up 30-year amortizations, the benchmark 1.5 million for an insured mortgage. I mean, let me know what you think. Do you think that this is normal? Do you think, ultimately over the last 15 years, are these rules actually going to move the market? Are they going to move the needle for buyers? And as I said, looking at it from all different perspectives, let me know your thoughts as we unpack and go through this journey. And once again, if we get any more updates, we'll be talking about it right here on the channel. We will be doing a mortgage rate update in the next little while because bond yields have increased in Canada, 30, 40 basis points in the last few weeks. Some lenders have increased their fixed rate mortgages. Obviously, the Bank of Canada is meeting on October 23rd. There is a potential for a large monumental cut in Canada, maybe a quarter, maybe 0.5%. Obviously, having that conversation. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the reasons why that those fixed rate mortgages may move up. But once again, let me know. What do you think about these new changes from Chrystia Freeland Liberal government? Let me know what you think about these rental programs, some of the pilot programs. And let me know what you think about this study. Is all of this telling us something? Let me know in the comment sections below. But until next week, thanks again for stopping by. Have a great one.